Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. Reborn in this life, I decided to give up my fiancé, Captain Ethan Reed, and return him to his beloved first love because in my previous life, I loved him for 30 years and was neglected by him for just as long. I fell gravely ill in my early 40s from years of exhaustion and overwork. As I lay on my deathbed, Ethan was busy decorating his new house, preparing to marry his white moonlight, Lily Carter. Even the 2 sons I had raised on my own were running around for their wedding. Meanwhile, I was left all alone, lying in bed, waiting to die. At that moment, my heart turned to ash. Only then did I realize what a joke my entire life's efforts had been. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day we were supposed to get our marriage license, both of us still unmarried. This time, I decided to let them have each other, and devote myself to the country. From now on, I would live for the nation with no thought of return. Autumn, can you be a little more understanding? It's just a delayed license. Do you have to get this angry? Ethan's voice thundered in my ears as he waved the marriage cancellation form he had just retrieved. Lily just lost her husband. She's not in a good place emotionally right now. What harm is there in postponing the wedding a bit? Besides, as a fellow woman, the least you could do is go comfort her instead of acting so unreasonable. Here, I finally snapped out of my daze and realized that I had been reborn. Reborn to the exact day when Ethan came to the Civil Affairs office to delay getting our marriage license and took back the paperwork. I suddenly clutched my chest as the image of my death from the last life came rushing back, watching them live happily together without me. My heart felt as if it were being ripped apart. In my past life, after I cried, begged, and threatened to die, Ethan finally compromised and reluctantly registered the marriage with me. But after that, he was cold and distant, even bringing Lily to live with him on base while I was trapped in a small room taking care of his parents and raising the children. In the end, all I got to hear was them saying, "Mom, Dad, and Aunt Lily were meant to be together. If it hadn't been for you, they would have been a couple long ago. You held Ethan back for half his life. The Reed family has already done more than enough for you, Autumn Clark." And finally, Ethan looked me in the eye and said, "I won't be buried with you. In this life, I owe Lily too much." At that moment, I deeply regretted ever marrying Ethan Reed. I had given everything to that family. He was my husband. Those were my sons. Yet they all turned around to blame me for another woman. It didn't have to be this way. I could have had a bright, boundless life of my own. But I gave it all up for them. And in the end, everything was ruined. All those bottled-up emotions surged at once. My eyes turned red as I stared at Ethan, who was now young again, decades younger than the man I remembered, not yet graying. At 26, Ethan Reed was already the youngest battalion commander in his unit, with a cold and commanding presence. Meanwhile, I had been just an ordinary farm girl. If not for an unexpected incident, we never would have ended up together. Everyone felt sorry for Ethan, including himself. That's why he always treated me with impatience and sarcasm. Seeing that I had stayed silent for too long, Ethan opened his mouth to scold me again. But I cut him off. "You're right. We really shouldn't get married so soon." He clearly hadn't expected me to agree so easily. He froze and stared at me in disbelief. "Don't worry," he said after a pause. "I promised Grandpa I'd marry you, and I'll keep my word, but we'll wait until Lily feels better before we make any decisions." That was a line Ethan had told me countless times in my past life. When I hemorrhaged during childbirth, he said he'd come to the hospital once Lily recovered. When I was harvesting the autumn crops all by myself, he said he'd help once Lily's family was done being busy. Why did I have to wait for everything? Thinking of that, I ignored Ethan and turned to leave the Civil Affairs office. If I remembered correctly, today was the last day to submit the application for the Northwest Aerospace Institute. I wasn't going to stop for anyone this time. I would forge a brilliant path of my own. When I rushed breathlessly into the office and saw the application form still on the desk, already filled out, I finally let out a sigh of relief. Everything was still in time. "Professor J.O., I said, "I'd like to revise my application. I've decided to go to the Northwest and join the research project." Professor J.O. looked at me in surprise. Didn't you decline before? Besides, this is a closed project. You'd be away for at least 3 to 5 years. I remember today was supposed to be the day you and Captain Reed got your marriage license. If you go, you two will be separated. Will he agree to that? Hearing his concern, I answered firmly. This is a new era. Women are just as capable as men. Of course I'm going, I said, to contribute my talents to the country. As for our engagement, it's already been cancelled. Professor Shao was stunned and immediately made a call to confirm that Ethan and I had indeed called off our registration that day. After hanging up, he nodded in approval and wrote approved on the bottom of my application. I'm really glad you have this sense of purpose, he said with genuine relief. All right, I'll give you 7 days. Use that time to say goodbye to your family. I glanced up at the calendar on the wall. 1 week from today would be my 23rd birthday. That would be the perfect day to say goodbye to everything in the past. When I got home, it was dinner time. The house was filled with laughter and cheerful voices. As I pushed the door open, I saw Ethan's mother sitting on the sofa, arm in arm with Lily Carter, chatting happily. Ethan was walking over with a plate of freshly washed fruit, and naturally picked up a slice to bring to Lily's mouth. Their eyes met. The atmosphere was warm and intimate. But when he turned and saw me at the door, a flicker of awkwardness crossed his face. You're back late. Everyone's been waiting on you, Ethan said, his tone a little forced. Before I could respond, Lily walked over to me with a gentle smile. Autumn, I'm so sorry, she said softly. It's all my fault that you didn't get to register with Ethan today. He's really lucky to have a fiancé like you. So kind, so understanding, so generous. She paused, then added with a sorrowful look. Unlike me, I was forced into a marriage, and my husband died young. As soon as she finished, she burst into tears. Ethan immediately reached out and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. It's all in the past now, Lily. From now on, I'll take care of you. Ethan's mother also walked over, her face full of pity. Good girl. You've suffered so much all these years. The scene before me, this delicate, fragile woman, the tall and protective man, the kind, supportive elder, made me feel like the outsider in my own home. Not wanting to ruin the mood, I quietly set my bag down and walked toward the bedroom. But I hadn't even reached the door when Ethan's discontented voice came from behind me. Autumn Clark. Lily is a friend of mine, and this is her first time visiting our home. Shouldn't you be in the kitchen making dinner? I let out a dry laugh and turned around. Didn't you just say she's your friend? What does that have to do with me? Then, ignoring his startled expression, I slammed the door shut. In my past life, every time I came home, I would rush to buy groceries and hurry to make dinner so the whole family could enjoy a hot meal when they returned. But now I would never serve them again, not even once. I carefully hid my transfer application form in the bag and began packing. Since I had devoted most of my time to aerospace research, I didn't own much at the Reed household. The few pieces of clothing I had were made from leftover fabric Ethan had gotten when he used his ration coupons to make clothes for Lily. He happened to have some scraps left over, and had something made for me, too. But I didn't take any of those with me. I tossed them all into the bottom drawer without a second thought. Just as I was nearly finished packing, there was a knock at the door. I opened it reluctantly and found Ethan standing there with a bowl of food in his hands. His voice was unusually soft. You must be hungry. I got this from the canteen. Eat it while it's still hot. For a moment, I felt dazed. In my past life, even when I was bedridden and unable to move, Ethan never once brought me food or gave me a sip of water. And now here he was. Before I could react, Ethan spoke again. Lily's single dorm is about to expire, and she doesn't have a place to stay. I was thinking, don't we have a spare room at home? So that's what this was really about. Of course, only when it came to Lily could he soften his tone like that. Under Ethan's expectant gaze, I slowly responded. Serving the people is your job. If you want to take her in, that's your decision. Ethan let out a sigh of relief and smiled. I've noticed you've changed lately. You're different from before. I gave a cold laugh. Oh, I'm definitely different because I don't want you anymore. Just as I was about to shut the door, Ethan's eyes caught the various bags and luggage behind me. He looked confused. What are you packing for? Are you going somewhere? Expressionless, I replied. There's too much useless stuff. I'm sorting it out to sell for scrap. He paused for a second, then nodded. Right, Lily's moving in soon. There's not enough space. In that case, help me sort through my things too. We'll share one wardrobe after we're married. Ethan, we're calling off the engagement. Before I could finish my sentence, his mother's voice came from outside the room. Ethan. Lily says her stomach's feeling upset. Come check on her. Ethan turned abruptly and slammed into the half-open door, dropping the bowl of food in his hands. It shattered on the floor. Watching his hurried figure disappear into the hallway, I decided that the rest of what I wanted to say would never need to be said again. Once Ethan was gone, I closed the door and carefully wrote out a formal letter to end our engagement. I thought I'd be plagued by restless thoughts that night, tossing and turning until morning. But unexpectedly, I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, just as Ethan was getting ready to leave for work, I finally walked out of my room at a slow pace. He frowned and looked at me with obvious displeasure. You're just getting up now? What am I supposed to eat? I was planning to take those dumplings you made last time to the base for Lily. Great. Now there's nothing. I remembered that Ethan used to say the same thing in my past life. He always claimed my dumplings were delicious, so I made them every other day for him. Each time, he said they weren't enough, took most of them in a lunchbox, and left me with just 2 on a plate of hastily cooked noodles. Only now do I realize those dumplings had always been for Lily. Thinking about that, I spoke up. Sorry. From now on, you should eat at the base canteen. Don't they always serve breakfast there? Ethan's brow furrowed, and he forced down his irritation. Are you still mad about postponing the license? If not, then what is it? Autumn Clark, we've known each other for 10 years. If something's bothering you, just say it. No need to play these little games. Yeah, 10 years. And I never once warmed your heart. Looking at Ethan's increasingly annoyed expression, I said quietly, because I'm tired. I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning just to make those dumplings. I continued. Ethan, look at my hands. Do they look like the hands of a girl in her early 20s? When I was 15, my father died saving Ethan's father. Not long after, my mother passed away, too. And with her last breath, she entrusted me to the Reed family. Later, when Ethan was accepted into the military, I moved out to follow him, willingly, taking care of everything for him. His meals, his clothes, everything. I became an expert at housework in just 2 months, and I did it all for 8 years straight. A flicker of something unreadable passed over Ethan's face. All right then, take a break. I'll just grab something quick from the canteen at lunch. I didn't respond. I just turned around and left to go handle the transfer paperwork at the Research Institute. After I finished everything, I turned a corner only to spot Ethan, the very same man who said he just grabbed something quick, walking into a state-run restaurant side by side with Lily Carter. I pretended not to see them and tried to take a detour, but the next second, Lily hurried over to block my path. Autumn. Ethan said I haven't had much of an appetite lately, and insisted on taking me out to eat. Since we ran into you, let's eat together. I shook my head. I'm busy. You two go ahead. Ethan, however, frowned. What could you possibly be busy with? Didn't you just say this morning that you needed to rest? Come on, join us. His tone was firm, as if he wasn't giving me a choice. Lily chimed in sweetly, yes, sister. Don't tell me you're avoiding lunch just because you don't want to eat with me. To avoid unnecessary drama and leave on clean terms, I nodded and agreed. At the restaurant, Ethan ordered a full table of dishes. I couldn't help but laugh quietly as the plates were brought out. There wasn't a single one I liked. When the steamed shrimp arrived, Ethan instinctively peeled several and placed them into Lily's bowl, using the hands I had protected and cared for over the years. Perhaps sensing my stare, he hesitated for a moment, then placed one of the freshly peeled shrimp onto my plate. Autumn, dear, you eat. I looked down at the shrimp lying awkwardly on my plate, right next to the pile of bones I had just spit out, and suddenly lost my appetite. I pushed the shrimp to the outer edge of the dish without a word. Seeing this, Ethan couldn't help but ask, what's wrong? Didn't you used to love shrimp? I gave a faint smile and said, exactly. That was before. Right now my favorite dish is braised pork ribs, I said. Ethan froze for a moment, looking at me like something about me had changed, something he couldn't quite name. But in the end he didn't press further. After the meal, for some reason, Ethan suddenly remembered that my birthday was coming up in a few days. Insisting on making it up to me, he dragged me to the department store to pick out a birthday gift. I was going to refuse, but then I thought he owed me this, so I agreed. In my previous life, I had worn this same wristwatch, but over the years it had stopped working and the numbers had faded. After we got married, Ethan noticed how worn it was and promised, "Autumn, wait for me to ask a friend from the South to bring you the most popular watch from there." But I waited a lifetime, and that watch never came. This time, I didn't want to wait for anything again. At the department store, I walked ahead by myself, picking out what I liked. Once I made my decision, Ethan quietly took it to the cashier and paid. Just then, the owner of a nearby jewelry store came over and said with a grin, "Captain Reed, you just bought a ring not long ago, and now you're here buying a watch for your fiancé. You two really have a great relationship." Ethan turned sharply toward me. It was the first time I saw panic in his eyes. When he saw that I didn't react much, he relaxed a bit and casually brushed off the comment with a few vague words. He didn't know that the tissue in my hand had already been crumpled white from how tightly I was squeezing it. Seeing I was silent, Lily stepped forward and offered an explanation with a gentle smile. "Autumn, I was the one who asked Ethan to keep it from you. You know, I just got divorced, and when he saw my hand without a ring, he gave me one in secret. I told him not to tell you so you wouldn't misunderstand, but if you want, I can take it off and give it to you right now." As she spoke, she quickly removed the ring and tried to shove it onto my finger. But it was clearly a size too small, and it dug painfully into my skin. I shoved her away hard without thinking, and to my surprise, she stumbled backward and fell straight to the ground. The next second, Ethan's furious voice shouted behind me, "Autumn Clark, what are you doing?" He rushed forward and scooped Lily into his arms. And before I could even react, his palms slammed across my face. "Have you had enough? So, what if I bought her a ring? Do you really have to make such a big deal out of it? I want you to apologize to Lily." The impact threw me against the glass display case, and pain shot through my lower back, making it hard to stand. Ethan's brows furrowed as he reached out to help me up, but I instinctively pulled away, lowering my head to hide the tears brimming in my eyes. So this was it. 10 years by his side meant nothing compared to Lily putting on a show. But of course he was so bold about it because he was used to me loving him no matter what. But not anymore. The moment that love ended, I had no reason left to tolerate him. I raised my hand and slapped Ethan hard across the face. "You think everyone else is heartless just because your own heart is rotten? If I didn't do something, I won't apologize for it. And if I did, I still wouldn't." I didn't hold back. The slap left a vivid red mark on Ethan's face. As I turned to leave, I took off the brand new watch and tossed it aside. Even a gift can't bring joy if it comes from the wrong person. Something that doesn't suit me is meaningless, no matter the price. For the next 2 days, I deliberately avoided Ethan to ensure I could leave without more trouble. But trouble came anyway. That afternoon, I was standing at the bus stop, planning to go to the market to pick up some necessities for my upcoming move to the Northwest. Just as I was checking the schedule, Lily showed up beside me with a smug look. "Autumn Clark, I never expected someone like you, all quiet and harmless on the surface, to actually have some bite." That slap not only made Ethan ignore me for days, but he even took back the ring. "Looks like I underestimated you, little manipulator," she sneered. But no matter what tricks you use to pull Ethan away from me, it won't change the fact that I'm the one in his heart. This was the first time Lily had shown her true colors in front of me. I was about to tell her I'd be leaving soon and wish the two of them a long and happy life when suddenly a man with a scar on his face came up from behind her, grabbed her, and pressed something cold against her waist. "Don't say a word," he growled. "Hand over everything valuable in your pockets." The proud, arrogant Lily from seconds earlier instantly froze in fear, unable to speak. Trembling, she fumbled in her pocket and pulled out a few coins. The man scoffed. "You're dressed in all the latest fashion, and you expect me to believe that's all you've got on you? Hurry up and hand it over." the man barked. Unless you want to die right here. Lily choked through sobs. These were all gifts. I really don't have much money. I've given you everything. The man's twisted, tense expression made me think of what Ethan had mentioned recently about a labor camp escapee the authorities were still hunting. I had a hunch this was him. I watched as the blade in his hand edged closer to Lily's neck. Forcing myself to stay calm, I spoke up. Sir, please. There's no need for violence. Let's talk this through. You can have the money as much as you need. It's just she might not be carrying much right now. The man spat on the ground. Cut the crap. Either you cough it up for her or get lost. I hurried to open my wallet. Most of what I had were food and fabric ration tickets, but I pulled out the few bills I did have, and was just about to hand them over when I heard a familiar, urgent voice behind me. John Chanjen, if you've got a problem, come at me. Don't hurt them. It was Ethan. I started to turn, but someone grabbed me from behind. An arm wrapped around my neck, cutting off my air. I couldn't breathe. Lily, meanwhile, burst into tears the moment she saw Ethan. Ethan, help me please. Yung Chong Chang's face lit up with manic joy. He patted Lily's cheek. Well, looks like you do know each other, and not just acquaintances either. I heard you talking about rings earlier. So let me guess. A little love triangle, huh? Two beautiful women fighting over one man. Lucky you, Captain Reed. Shame for you though. Today is my last day anyway. So here's a little quiz for you. Pick one to save. The other one comes with me to hell. Ethan's arms tensed, veins bulging. He couldn't speak. Zhang didn't rush him. He simply tightened his grip. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the knife slice across Lily's neck. At the same time, my lungs burned from the lack of oxygen. Then Ethan's voice came trembling. I'll take the one on the left. Don't hurt Lily. Boom. It felt like my entire heart had shattered into dust. Everything, 2 lifetimes worth of emotion, turned to ash in that moment. Zhang shoved Lily aside with force, then dragged me toward a dilapidated shack nearby. I watched Ethan rush to Lily, scooping her up in his arms. He paused for a split second, then ran off without even looking back. Even though I'd told myself I no longer loved him, even though my heart had been bruised and broken already, this moment still hurt more than I could bear. Zhang must have noticed my dazed expression because his near-deranged laughter rang in my ears. What's the matter? You and that captain have something going on? Too bad he chose someone else. Hurts, doesn't it? I shook my head, begging silently with my eyes for him to let me go. I didn't want to die. Not like this. I couldn't accept that after being reborn, I'd die before fulfilling any of my dreams. And I especially couldn't accept that my death would be because of Ethan and Lily. But the pressure on my throat kept me from saying a word. Somewhere in the haze, a memory flickered in my mind. My mother on her deathbed placing my hand into Ethan's and whispering, Ethan, I'm entrusting you with my daughter. Please take care of her for us. He had replied, Auntie, I promise I'll take good care of Autumn. But Mom, he never loved me. That promise was nothing but a lie. My vision started to go dark. Breathing was almost impossible. Just when I thought my life was over, the grip around my neck suddenly loosened. Behind Zhang stood Ethan. Back again. Autumn, are you okay? I'm sorry I was late. Instinctively, I grabbed onto Ethan's arm, gasping for air. He held me firmly in his arms. Does it hurt? I'll take you to the hospital, he said softly, like he truly cared, like I was the one he loved, as if it hadn't just been him who left me behind. Zhang Chong was quickly swarmed and taken down by a group of military police. I knew then that prison would be Zhang's destination. On the way to the hospital, I turned to Ethan. Before I could even speak, he seemed to know what I was about to ask. He met my gaze in the rearview mirror. Lily's health, it's not good. That's why I had to save her first. Autumn, you're not mad, right? I was betting I could still come back in time to save you. But with Lily, I couldn't take that risk. Don't worry, there won't be a next time. That small, fragile ember of warmth I'd almost felt extinguished in an instant. Yes, Ethan had come back for me, but only after ensuring Lily was safe. I almost softened. Almost. But thank God I didn't. I turned away from him, staring silently out the car window. Ethan, there will never be an us again." When we got to the hospital, whether out of guilt or something else, Ethan stayed by my side without leaving for a moment. After the doctor's examination, I was told there were no serious injuries, just some bruises. But Ethan insisted I stay for a few days of observation, saying he didn't feel comfortable letting me go yet. That evening, he brought back a packed dinner from the base canteen and sat beside my hospital bed. Just then, a new nurse came rushing in and told him that a patient upstairs, Miss Lily Carter, was emotionally unstable again, crying and making a scene. He needed to go check on her immediately. Ethan hesitated and turned to look at me as if he wanted to say something. I waved my hand dismissively. "Go on. If her condition worsens, it won't be good." Hearing that, he looked relieved and gave me a grateful smile. "Then get some rest. I'll come back to see you tonight." I smiled faintly and said nothing. After he left, I opened the lunchbox. There were no shrimp this time, just a full box of braised pork ribs. He didn't return that night. I'd lost count of how many times Ethan had broken his word. Over the next 2 days, I barely saw him, which was exactly what I wanted. The day I was discharged was also my birthday. I didn't tell anyone. I handled the paperwork on my own and quietly went home. Not long after I stepped inside, Ethan walked in, holding a brand new cream cake from the bakery. "Autumn Clark, how could you just leave the hospital without saying a word? Do you know how scared I was searching all over for you?" I looked at him confused. "Why were you looking for me?" He blurted out. "Why else? Of course, because I care about you. Anyway, forget that. It's your birthday today. I went out specially to get you a cream cake. Come on, try it." Before I could refuse, Ethan had already placed a large slice of cake in front of me and lit a candle. Urging me on, he said, "Make a wish." I closed my eyes under his expectant gaze. Just then his phone rang. I knew what that meant. As expected, after he hung up, he said the hospital was calling him back. I nodded, but instead of leaving, he held my hand and said, "Autumn, let's go get our marriage license tomorrow morning. I promise I won't let you down this time." I glanced at the calendar on the wall and smiled. "It's fine. I don't really mind anymore. Actually, I have a gift for you too. You'll find it when you get back tomorrow." Ethan left, filled with hope. I closed my eyes and made my birthday wish at 23. From now on, no matter how high the mountains or how far the rivers, we will never see each other again. After blowing out the candle, I ate the piece of cake in front of me. The rest I threw into the trash. Before leaving, I placed 3 things on the table. The first was my written letter of withdrawal from the engagement. The second was the wristwatch Ethan had given me. The third was a red string heart knot made from strands of my and my mother's hair, a symbol of our bond. I picked up the scissors and with one sharp snip severed it completely. Then I grabbed my luggage and left the house. On the bus to the train station, I passed by the department store. Through the window, I saw Ethan, who had claimed he had hospital matters to handle, walking alongside Lily shopping. I smiled faintly. They looked like strangers to me now. From this day on, every single day belonged to me and me alone. After a bumpy 4-day train ride, I finally arrived at the Northwest Aerospace Institute. It wasn't until I saw my name on the bulletin board that I truly felt I'd broken free of the fate that had trapped me in my previous life. That's why I cherished this chance more than anything. Once I completed my onboarding, I threw myself into the intense pace of research. Aside from eating and sleeping, I spent all my time either in the lab or in the simulation chamber. A month passed and I slowly adjusted to this busy but fulfilling life. But I didn't expect to see Ethan again. This time standing in the director's office with dark circles under his eyes and exhaustion all over his face. His voice was filled with disbelief as he stared at me. "Autumn Clark, why did you break off the engagement? We agreed we'd go get the license the next day." His tone was angry and confused. I looked at him coldly. "Ethan Reed, are you still lying to yourself? You're in love with Lily Carter. It's not because of me, is it?" I said quietly. "You're just not used to the fact that someone who's been serving you for so long suddenly disappeared. That's why you came all the way out here looking for me." Ethan suddenly looked up, eyes bloodshot, and said, "Autumn Clark, that's not it. I came because I saw what you left behind. I knew you misunderstood, so I came to explain. I have nothing to misunderstand, I said coldly. Lily and I were just classmates, he insisted. She had just lost her husband, and I was just trying to help, that's all. I laughed bitterly. Help. So that's what you call help now. That's disgusting. He stared at me in disbelief. How can you say that? You never used to speak this way. That's right, I said, smiling sarcastically. Because I'm not the same person I was before. I'm no longer that Autumn Clark who let herself be fooled her entire life by you too. Don't tell me you can't see that Lily has feelings for you. And you have feelings for her too, don't you? Like that day when she fell. And you immediately assumed I pushed her. Is that really what I am in your eyes? Some vicious, jealous woman. Ethan shook his head and reached out to grab my arm. No, that's not it. It's just you two were the only ones there. And because you've always been critical of her, I assumed. I cut him off with a cold laugh. So, you do know that your bias toward Lily might upset your fiancé, but you chose to act that way anyway. And whenever I expressed my frustration, you shut me up by saying I was narrow-minded, didn't you? He was speechless. In my previous life, after we got married, Lily would constantly come over to our home. Every time I lost my temper about it, Ethan would lecture me, telling me I was being unreasonable. In his eyes, I was just a petty, jealous wife who couldn't accept her husband helping a grieving classmate. He even scolded me in public just to defend Lily, making me feel like I was the one who had committed a crime. And now he was doing it again. But this time, I wouldn't back down. With a cold expression, I pried his hand off mine. Let's end this here. Your family has taken care of me for years. That's enough to repay the debt for my father's life. From now on, you live your life, and I'll focus on my aerospace research. Let's not interfere with each other anymore. Ethan stood there in shock. What are you talking about? What do you mean not interfere? I never said I wouldn't marry you. I promised your mother I'd take care of you after she passed. And both of our families agreed to this engagement. This isn't something you can just walk away from. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the letter I'd written to end our engagement. His voice softened. Autumn, if this is because I saved Lily first the other day, then I'm sorry. I was wrong. I swear it won't happen again. Before he could finish, I cut him off firmly. If you think that ending things without saying it to your face isn't formal enough, then let me be clear now. We're done. I'm breaking it off, Ethan. This time it's me who doesn't want you. That was the first time I'd ever seen Ethan. Someone so proud and admired looked utterly defeated. He stared at me, his voice faltering. Autumn, if it bothers you that much, I won't see Lily anymore. Okay. I really only ever saw her as a friend. Please don't let your imagination run wild. If this had been the Autumn from my past life, maybe I would have been moved. But not anymore. Ethan's shameless denial only pushed me further to my limit. I had no desire to argue. I ripped off the last mask he was wearing. That day at the hospital, I said calmly, I saw you with my own eyes. You were holding Lily in your arms. You kissed her on the forehead. And now you want to tell me there's nothing between you. His face went completely pale. Clearly, he hadn't expected I'd seen that moment. And no, it's not what you think. I can explain. I shook my head. Don't bother. I've been doing great since I left you, Ethan. That girl who used to follow you around like a shadow, she's gone. Autumn Clark is dead. Just go, I said. Let's not see each other again. Good night. Without another glance, I turned and walked away. But behind me, Ethan still refused to give up. Autumn Clark, I'll wait for you until you change your mind. Over the next few days, Ethan didn't let up. Every day, he waited for me outside the research institute. He even brought a gold ring, a huge bouquet, and knelt down in front of everyone to propose to me. In my past life, I had dreamed of a moment like that. Longed for it. But now, I didn't need any of it. Still, Ethan kept kneeling, refusing to get up. A crowd had gathered, murmuring, pointing, speculating. I didn't want to be a sideshow, so I picked up the bouquet and threw it straight into the trash in front of everyone. Then I turned and walked away. What I didn't expect was that even after that, Ethan still wouldn't give up. He waited for me every day outside the gate until finally, 2 weeks later, He was summoned for a disciplinary talk. A few days after that, Professor Xiao pulled me aside to inform me that Ethan had returned to the capital. The institute had issued a formal warning, barring him from further contact with any research personnel. But that wasn't the only news. Lily Carter had attempted suicide. Apparently, after learning that Ethan had submitted a request for transfer to the Northwest in order to pursue me, she couldn't take it. She slit her wrists at home. A neighbor delivering something happened to catch her in time and rushed her to the hospital. She barely made it. I laughed bitterly. Lily would never truly want to die. With someone like Ethan, outstanding, admired, loyal, this was the perfect moment for her. Why would she choose death? This was just another stunt meant to reel Ethan back in. With Ethan finally out of the picture, I was able to refocus fully on aerospace studies. Looking at the photographs of galaxies and constellations taken from overseas satellites, I felt an overwhelming sense of awe. There really was such a vast, mysterious space beyond the limits of what we know. In my previous life, I'd spent most of it confined in a 400-foot apartment. I hadn't even gotten the chance to properly see the outside world. But this time, not only would I see the Earth, I would venture far beyond it, into the mysteries of the universe. I realized how lucky I was. Lucky to have been reborn before registering that marriage. Lucky to have escaped the quicksand of my past life. 10 years later, the Northwest Space Agency made its first official voyage into space. And I, now the first astronaut representing my country, was in orbit recording images beyond Earth. Finally, what lay before my eyes wasn't a tiny room, but a dazzling sea of stars. The flight ended a month later. Afterward, all personnel involved in the mission were sent to a rehabilitation hospital to recover. It was the first time in 10 years that I had left the base. Only then did I realize just how much time had passed. The streets were now full of cars and towering skyscrapers. The once popular brick-sized cell phones had been replaced by sleek, compact handhelds. Black and white TVs, once the centerpiece of every living room, were now color televisions that could broadcast live feeds, including images from our spaceflight. When the recorded segment ended, the screen shifted to a live interview. A reporter was asking passers-by how they felt about the country's first successful mission into space. Among the curious and excited faces, one tear-streaked man caught the reporter's attention. "Sir, are you crying from excitement?" she asked. The man slowly took off his cap, revealing a full head of white hair and a deeply lined face. His voice was, but the moment our eyes met through the screen, I nearly didn't recognize him. Ethan Reed. In my memories he was always sharp, spirited, and commanding. But now he stood there disheveled, grizzled, so much older than I remembered. The reporter, noticing his emotion, asked, "Do you know Autumn Clark? She's the first astronaut in our nation to land on the moon." Ethan seemed lost in thought, frozen for several moments before speaking. "No, I don't know her. I just think she's incredible, that's all." It was the first time the reporter had encountered such an emotional stranger. She followed up. "Is there anything you'd like to say to her? Who knows? She might be watching right now." Ethan paused for a long time. Then, slowly lifting the microphone, he said, "Autumn Clark, as a passerby, I wish you a brilliant future." In that moment, I saw the wind brush the corners of his eyes. Those eyes, once so familiar, were now brimming with tears. After leaving the recovery hospital, I finally saw Professor Zhao again. Someone I hadn't spoken to in years. That's when I learned what had happened. 7 years ago, Ethan married Lily. After returning to the capital, he took care of her, even rented her a new apartment. At the same time, he tried everything he could to request a transfer to the Northwest. But because of his sensitive military status, the approval was delayed for years. When Lily found out that I had officially ended the engagement, it didn't take long for her to show up, red-eyed, insisting she wanted to move in with Ethan. Eventually, his heart softened, and he agreed. So, the two of them lived together for 3 years, not married, not entirely separate, just ambiguously under the same roof. 3 years later, Ethan's transfer was finally approved. He was ecstatic, saying he could finally go to the Northwest and win my forgiveness. The night before Ethan was supposed to leave for the Northwest, Lily Carter suddenly screamed from her room, accusing Ethan of raping her. The commotion spread quickly. Neighbors and the entire community were talking about it. Given that the two of them had been living under the same roof, the resolution proposed was simple. Unless Ethan married Lily, he would face prison time. And so Ethan followed the organization's directive and married her. Little by little, Lily began to occupy every part of his life under the title of wife. But Ethan was far from happy. He lived like a walking corpse, numb and hollow. Lily, on the other hand, was elated. She had finally gotten what she wanted: marriage with Ethan Reed. She went around the compound telling everyone that Ethan and I were only engaged because of an accident, that we never loved each other, and that she and Ethan shared true mutual affection. Over time, the neighbors began to accept this revised version of events. The pointing fingers and whispers gradually faded. But not long after, Lily's joy soured. She realized that Ethan wasn't quite the man she'd imagined. When I was in the house, I had done everything. Ethan always left home with his clothes freshly pressed, perfectly neat. But now Lily had to handle it all. Cooking, laundry, cleaning. She also had to care for Ethan's mother, who in the second year of their marriage became disabled after falling down the stairs. From then on, Ethan came home from work only to wash clothes, prepare meals, and tend to his mother's most basic needs. Lily soon realized Ethan didn't even appreciate her sacrifices. Before long, her hands were covered in calluses. Her once fair complexion turned dull and worn from all the chores. The life she'd worked so hard to secure suddenly didn't feel like a win at all. The final blow came when one night, Ethan, drunk, called out my name in his sleep. Then she found them. 99 letters hidden in the back of the wardrobe. Love letters Ethan had written to me one by one through the years, sitting alone at his desk, deep into the night. Every single page was filled with longing. That broke her. She regretted everything. Marrying a man whose heart had always belonged to another, who had turned her into nothing more than a housemaid. This was never the life she had wanted. Not long after, Lily waited until Ethan was away on a trip, then left behind a divorce letter and disappeared. When Ethan returned and found the letter, he smiled. He was finally free. He applied for early retirement from the military and made his way west, determined to follow the path I'd taken. By then, I had already become a nationally recognized figure in aerospace. I was traveling the world, giving talks, attending conferences, representing my country. I had devoted my entire life to space exploration. Many years later, I was invited by the state to appear on national television. They asked me to share a few words with the next generation of youth entering the space program. Looking at the eager, passionate faces below the stage, I spoke from the heart, inspired by the fire in their eyes. But suddenly an image surfaced in my mind. Me in a past life, trapped in a tiny, suffocating room. And I began. To the young women out there, may you be strong. May you be confident. May you be brave enough to challenge the chains of tradition. May you live freely and boldly, never clipping your wings for anyone. May you stand tall in your youth, carrying your own strength. May your heart burn with passion and your eyes shine with light. Even through the storm, may you run forward with a smile. May you fear neither the future nor the past. May you chase your dreams as your reward, breaking the waves without hesitation. And may your life be filled with hope and strength. And somewhere far away, Ethan Reed sat quietly, watching me on the screen as if I were a precious treasure. He murmured softly, "My girl, your life was always meant to be magnificent and free."